War is often remembered through massive offensives, tank battles, and famous generals. But, the men who survived the longest and operated the most effectively in World War II understood something far less glamorous and far more important: fieldcraft. Not firepower, not bravado, fieldcraft. The quiet, disciplined skills that kept soldiers alive in forests, deserts, jungles and frozen hedgerows. The ability to move without being seen, observe without being detected, live off limited supplies, and disappear into terrain when necessary. Today, we're breaking down the real fieldcraft secrets used during World War II, the techniques that separated the professionals from the casualties, and how those lessons still apply to serious students of military history and preparedness. Fieldcraft began with observation before movement. The first rule drilled into reconnaissance units and commandos was simple: look, listen, and think before you move. Units such as the British Commandos and operatives, trained by the Special Operations Executive, were taught that movement was risk, observation was survival. Experienced soldiers learned to study patterns. When do patrols pass? Where do vehicles slow down? Which farmhouses show signs of occupation? They would spend hours watching before shifting position, even a few hundred yards. Impulsive movement exposed you to ambush, snipers, or civilian informants. The practical lesson here is discipline. Whether you're navigating wilderness or studying historical campaigns, information always precedes action. Slowing down increases survival odds dramatically. Camouflage was about breaking shape, not hiding in bushes. Many people think camouflage means covering yourself in leaves. WWII Fieldcraft went deeper. Soldiers were trained to break up the human outline. The human body has recognizable vertical lines: head, shoulders, rifle barrel. Those lines stand out in nature. Snipers and reconnaissance troops learned to avoid skylining themselves on ridges. They stayed below crests and used shadows intelligently. In North Africa, British long-range desert group patrols moved along terrain folds to avoid being silhouetted against the horizon. Camouflage also meant controlling shine, Belt buckles were dulled, watches were covered, and even skin was darkened with soot or mud to prevent light reflection. It's remarkable, but a single glint could reveal a position hundreds of yards away. Today, the same principle applies in any outdoor scenario. You should avoid sharp outlines, blend with terrain depth, and, whenever possible, stay in shadow. Noise discipline was a matter of life and death. In close terrain like the hedgerows of Normandy, sound carried unpredictably. A snapped twig or loose equipment could alert enemy patrols instantly. So soldiers taped metal parts, secured loose straps, and learned to step deliberately, rolling the foot from outer edge inward to reduce sound. Night movement required even greater control. During the Allied advance after D-Day, paratroopers who were scattered behind German lines survived by moving slowly, communicating in whispers and, using hand signals instead of speech. Fieldcraft teaches that silence is strength. The less attention you attract, the longer you remain operational. Terrain dictated survival strategy. The Pacific jungle required completely different fieldcraft than the Eastern Front. In Burma, British units under the Chindits operated deep behind Japanese lines, relying heavily on jungle canopy for concealment. The dense vegetation reduced visibility but, well, increased disease risk and navigation challenges. Meanwhile, Soviet partisans fighting in occupied territory used forests and swamps as natural fortresses. They established hidden camps in marshland where vehicles couldn't follow, you know. The harsh winters provided concealment but demanded careful shelter construction. Understanding terrain is more than just knowing direction. It means understanding how climate, elevation and vegetation shape both opportunity and threat, really. Small unit independence was essential. By 1944, specialized units trained by the Office of Strategic Services were operating in occupied Europe. These teams were often cut off from immediate reinforcement. They carried minimal gear and relied heavily on adaptability. So they learned to cache supplies in waterproof containers buried along planned routes. If they were ever forced to retreat, they had fallback resources ready and waiting. And you know, they also varied their routes constantly, just to avoid establishing patterns that enemy patrols could track. Preparedness-minded viewers can actually apply this principle directly. Redundancy and unpredictability, well, they really do increase resilience. Whether it's about supply storage or route planning, you should never rely on a single solution. Fire control and light discipline kept positions hidden, plain and simple. Open flames were just too dangerous. In Europe, even a brief cooking fire could draw artillery or patrol attention, you see. Soldiers used smokeless fuels whenever possible and always kept flames shielded below ground level. Cigarettes were particularly risky at night. The glow of a match or ember could be seen from surprising distances. Many veterans later admitted that the urge to smoke cost lives. Light discipline extended to vehicles as well. During blackout conditions in Britain, even civilian headlights were restricted to narrow slits to prevent guiding enemy bombers. The lesson is simple but powerful. Light equals visibility, and visibility equals vulnerability. Psychological endurance separated amateurs from professionals. Fieldcraft wasn't only physical, it required mental stamina. Isolation behind enemy lines tested nerves constantly. Units learned to rotate watch schedules, enforce rest when possible, and maintain small routines to preserve morale. You know, the ability to remain calm while uncertain was a survival multiplier. Veterans frequently credited steady leadership at the squad level as the reason they survived prolonged operations. And, well, history repeatedly shows that controlled, disciplined units outperform reckless aggression. Why these World War II fieldcraft secrets still matter? You know, World War II was fought across deserts, jungles, frozen forests and shattered cities. The technology of war has evolved, sure, but the fundamentals of fieldcraft have not. Observation before action. Concealment before comfort. Silence over speed. Terrain over ego. For serious students of military history, understanding these techniques offers a deeper appreciation of how ordinary soldiers endured extraordinary conditions. For preparedness enthusiasts, these lessons are timeless. The ability to move carefully, think critically and adapt to environment is never outdated. The men of that generation were not superhuman. They were trained, disciplined, and committed to mastering the basics. That mastery, not luck, kept many of them alive. If you value serious World War II history and want more deep dives into the practical skills that shaped the outcome of the war, subscribe to the channel and share this with someone who respects the hard-earned lessons of the past. There's a reason these Fieldcraft secrets worked then. Paratroopers, they still matter now.